Awesome. All right. Hi, David. My name is Nina Svet. I'm excited to welcome you to our winners interviews here at LAAIMPA, and I would love to congratulate you on winning the Best Horror Award.
Unexpected,
Unexpected.
totally unexpected. But thank you. I appreciate it. And it's really nice to meet you, Nina.
Of course, thank you. And Transform, it's not just a music video, but a powerful, unsettling, and deeply personal experience. It gave me goosebumps at some point. Truly gets under the skin. We'd love to look a little deeper into your creative process and the meaning behind this project. And first things first. In your film, the operation looks like an act of violence, okay? Yet it is also the protagonist's voluntary choice. For
Correct.
you, is this more about self-destruction or self-salvation?
Ooh, that's a great question.
Starting
I'll give you a little bit of context on it just in terms of where this sits within a very broad transmedia IP, because
Mhm,
that's really what this is. So the character in question, her name is Alight.
mhm,
I have her voice curated. So the music that I produce is her singing her story.
mhm,
And this particular track is from my upcoming album, which is dropping on March 1st, called Dehumanize. This is the eighth
mhm,
track, so it's a little bit further along than what happens in the beginning. And the general idea here is that I use a cyberpunk world in order to explore grief and
mhm.
explore it as a physical manifestation instead of something that we just deal with in here and in here that you don't typically see. And so at this point in the story, what you're watching is her identity has collapsed, and her lover was tragically killed, and she lost that observation. She no longer has her witness, and without that, she can't really identify herself. She believes without my witness, do I even exist? And that identity collapse follows this entire story. It's a concept album, so every song follows it. And then I have a novel where each song relates to the chapter of the novel and the fictional story as well. So at this point, she's chosen to transform herself, um, and you're watching that the fact that she can't deal with the pain that she's experienced, she decides to remake herself voluntarily, and then the creature that's doing it is Dr. Bug, and he is pure utility. So he is a what looks like a giant pill bug with surgical mandibles and the entire thing. So yeah, it is unsettling. It honestly turned out more unsettling than I anticipated it to when I started making it. Like I kind of I tend to vibe create, like vibe coding. Like I'm just like, and then there's one part in the middle of it, which you would know, where the music stops, and
Mhm.
uh, and you just watch it. And that's not that silence is obviously not in the song. But I was thinking to myself as I was creating it, and I'm like, I really want to take this pain and this transformation she's going through, and pick it up and hold it in front of you, and let you see. And by the end of it, you can see, and it's honestly my favorite frame of the entire thing is one of the final frames where she rises and she is transformed. She has her new cybernetic eye, and there's an expression that hits her face where there's a sense of almost regret, or she's not really sure, like, did I just make a grievous mistake? So that's kind of the encapsulation of the whole thing, and that's the point in the story. So it is really grief architecture through a cyberpunk world, and that is her transformation turning into something different because she can't deal with the pain of what happened.
Right, and about that face expression at the very end, um, from what I understood, she's becoming more robotic, right? But during the operation, the woman keeps singing even through pain. Would you say music is her last connection to her humanity?
In a way, it's it is storytelling. And so what she's singing through there, because the lyrics are not standard lyrics,
Mhm.
these are commands. It's command language, and the entire album is not like that. It starts off with when she's really questioning herself. The album is actually in three acts, and this particular song is in the third act. And it follows grief architecture. In the first act, she's in her super ego. She's very mean to herself. All of this was my fault. Damn you for making me love you, and all those different things. Whereas in the second act, she starts to relive her memories and remembering him and having regrets. And then by the time she makes this choice in the third act to transform, the language is very stripped down. So when she's giving those commands, like transform, override, execute, initialize, and you see them up on the screen, that screen is the bug who's doing this operation. Those are the commands that he's essentially following, and she's basically pushing herself through it. She decided to go through this, and so transform is her transforming into something different because she couldn't escape the pain of and tragedy of what happened. Override is what happens. Actually, it's the next song. And override is when she starts getting essentially new commands loaded into her. Execute is when she finally turns into this new thing and has to try it out, essentially. And then initialize is her rebuilt, from there. And so it kind of builds her back up into something different. But there was a choice that she made, and the entire thing is her being voluntary through the entire thing. So
Wow, I was actually wondering, how were you able to give a musical flow to commands? How long did it take you? Where did this idea come from?
right.
And the execution, that must have been extremely hard.
You know, okay, so as I go through it, there's multiple layers to this in terms of the album as a whole and her journey through it. At first, it's very there's grief architecture. So it starts out, and she's actually just going through the stages of grief. We have denial, we have anger happening, we have depression happening, which is mostly in Act Two, the middle four songs. There's 12 songs total, so it's four, four, and four. And then the final one is where it's acceptance. And the entire time I'm trying to roll in that a lot of things, honestly, because there's psychology, there's super ego and id. There's philosophy because I explore what would be Cartesian duality, which is the idea of, are you man or are you machine? Like you are split between your physical and what you are in your thoughts. There's psychology, there's philosophy, there's grief architecture, and the entire thing. But I wanted to make sure I was staying true to the science fiction cyberpunk end of this. And in order to do that, I was leveraging commands. The following song, actually, right after Transform, is entirely done in computer language, but historical computer language. So it starts in assembly language, which is just very basic commands, and ends in quantum language, quantum computing language. And that one was much trickier, honestly, to get down because you're trying to rhyme things that are like computer
Yeah.
commands. And it's not easy. The choruses help because you can actually just like color it a little bit in the chorus. It's different because it's repetitive. In Transform, every single one of those commands, when she says glitch, that was her having a fault, not understanding what was going on and what was happening to her. When she says trace route is a command, where you send pings backwards to trace where you were, and that's her going back in her memories and trying to figure out like, where was I? When did this go wrong? And the conclusion that she comes to is that it went wrong when she had hope. And when she first met him, and she had hope that it was going to be, she let herself hope, and she knew that it was going to end poorly. So yeah, it was tricky doing that, and but some artistic license, and you change up the chorus a little bit. And I'm a huge fan of that kind of sound that's in there. So I'm like a big trip hop guy. I love progressive music. I love a little bit of the glitch aesthetic in there. Um, some of my favorite artists are like that, and so my influences come out in how the music is, and I love I've just found a love of writing lyrics and telling a story through them.
Wow. And when it comes to the music, that was written by you or was that AI?
I write the music, so I write all the lyrics. I do all the arrangements. I use AI, I use Suno to generate stems. And then I do all of my own stem editing. I rearrange it, I plug in whatever I need to plug in separately through typically Adobe Audition as a workstation. And then I do all of the mastering through mastering chains that I have in place that I prefer to use. So.
Awesome. And now that we know a little bit more about the album, about the grief concept that's there, where would you place our main character in the stage of grief? And can we tell that this whole process of her changing and her evolving, is that her successfully passing through all the stages?
I don't know if I go for successfully. I
And
I
she got a
classify.
different eye color,
I
so
know, yeah, and that heterochromia is like that's an iconic thing for her as a character, and I have her just really dialed in terms of like character generations and stuff like that. So I'm very excited to just create more and more. I have two other videos out, one of which was the second song on there. Um, which I call that one Schrodinger's sad girl because it's like if nobody sees me, am I ugly now? And then and then there's another one that I have on there that I just released called Firewall, which is where she decides to put her mask back on essentially and say like no, nobody's getting close to me. I don't want anybody near me. I'm putting my mask on and screw all of you. I'm just gonna live my way. It's a very defiant like type of thing. But eventually she gets to this point where she's transforming. Now all of these decisions, I mean, obviously this is not the way we want to handle grief. I just passed a couple days ago was the seventh anniversary of my brother passing away, and he was my big brother. He was 54 when he passed, and it was one of those moments in my life that sent me into a depression, and it was very very difficult to come out of that. Creatively, I was just blank. It was a desert for a few years, and everything I do, everything I write, whether it's the books I'm writing or stories like this or the worlds that I'm building, it all has some element of loss or and love and grief and that kind of psychology wrapped into it. And so this is a way for me to explore all of that I'm feeling and do it with a character that's very compelling, in a story that's compelling. And so on the surface level, if you just want a cool cyberpunk story, I got you covered. If you want a story that has lore that goes as far down as Cartesian duality, I got you covered. If you're just looking for the really emotional stuff, it's all in there too. In terms of her as a character, she's making bad decisions.
and
But
that's
this is yeah, I mean, grief is very difficult. It's that kind of thing where you do change as a person when you lose somebody. And in her case, there was this change, and she didn't handle it well, at all. And she misstep after misstep and decided to go through this. There's an entire fictional element to this as well that I'm not going to get into, but yeah, these were tricky decisions. And sometimes when you come out on the other side, it's not better or worse, but it is different. And that's what I was exploring with this one.
I would like to thank you for sharing this information with me about
Of
your
course.
brother and my
Yeah.
condolences, my biggest condolences to you and your family. And I was wondering if maybe there was a personal situation, a personal trauma that really spoke to you because you have such a deep understanding of the feeling that you're projecting in this album. And as someone who recently lost a grandfather literally weeks ago, I
I'm
thank you for
sorry.
of
Yeah,
I thank you for that. And I do think maybe it is not my place to say, but I do think that your brother is watching and he's very proud of your work.
he would be. It's there's this conversation that's around AI as tools and using them for artistic expression, where people say it's theft and it's slop and all these different things. And some of those things I agree with. It's cats playing an accordion on a porch at 2 a.m. Like those 5-second videos. If you want to call that slop, that's fine. Like I have no problem with that. It's fine. It's just mindless kind of scrolling things. But storytelling is what makes the difference in all of this. And so for me, when my brother passed, it took years for me to just kind of come around and find my feet again. And doing so through creative projects like this. And I'll tell you what, this was one of those characters. A light is the name of my protagonist is a light. Um, and her story was one that just kind of wormed its way into my head and presented itself. And I was like, I have to follow this. Like I feel like I'm getting this kind of creative muse. Where does this go? And then the next thing I know, I'm launching an IP. And I've got the novella all outlined. I'm in the middle of writing that. I've got the videos cooking. This is the second album. Um, and I'm getting ready to launch a Kickstarter to get this entire thing, to get these albums actually on vinyl, and with merch and the entire thing. I've got a great plan for that too, because the album itself is 55 minutes, so it's kind of long. So it needs to be a double, but I'm going to get it printed where one of the vinyls is blue and one is orange to match your eyes. So I got really cool stuff, ready to go. But
So
this,
much creativity. Wow.
and you know what? This all happened in the last 6 months with this particular IP. Like I've built things before. I've had my best-selling author moment, for books that I've written and stuff like that. But this is the first time I'm really trying to use these tools as a creative amplifier and get it out there. And one of the things that my brother's loss really taught me was
Mhm.
that, while I'm still here, I'm going to create. And I'm not going to apologize for using AI as a tool. And I'm not going to censor myself in any way. If there's something I want to make, I'm just going to make it. Um, because I do that to honor him because he's not here anymore. And when I think of it that way, there's nothing anybody can say to me or criticize me, be critical of, like,
While
oh,
you're
you
here.
use AI, you're one of those people, because you don't. I'm doing this for my brother. I'm not doing this for you as a critic. And so, like, you can choose not to like it and move on, and that's fine. I don't mind. That just means it's not for you. That's totally okay. But some people who will get it and who will understand the grief architecture behind it and all of those different things and the emotion that I always work with, they'll know. And those are my people.
Just like our judges,
Yeah,
they definitely felt the connection. Otherwise, we would not be here speaking, sharing personal deep moments.
for sure.
And I'm just gonna ask my last but not least question.
Yeah.
If the audience walks away from Transform with just one feeling or thought, what would you hope it is?
Oh man, that is a question I was not prepared for.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that something like this, where you're watching something like this, if they're going to walk away, I want them to feel like the music, the story. I want them to feel like there was a character arc in 3 minutes that could be understood, and that really communicated on multiple levels. There's the visceral horror level of it. There's blood, there's gore. It's kind of gross. You got those chewing sounds like in the middle and all that kind of stuff. Like, yes, we have that. But also just even in the very beginning of the video where she is just natural and beautiful and laying down and volunteering to go through this. And then you get to that end transformation in that end shot where she's rising, she's different, she's unsure. And I feel like when we strip down storytelling to things that are very human, that we all experience, love, loss, grief, anger, happiness, joy, when we focus on those things, that's what makes something authentically relatable. So you don't need to understand cyberpunk to watch this and get something out of it. You just need to be a human and have an open mind.
Awesome. I think that is a great note to end our interview. I would love to speak more, um, but thank you
Of
so
course.
much for such a brave and haunting work, and thank you for such a complex approach and for such close attention to detail.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and we look forward to your future projects.
Yep, absolutely. Thank
Thank
you.
you, and have a wonderful day.
Yep, you as well.